Good afternoon. This is a Devar Torah on Parashat Vayigash. It is 11th of the 12th Parshas on Sefer Bereshit, the first book of the Chumash. And this Parsha is very interesting. It's really a continuation of last week's Parshas Miketz. Even the way it's illustrated in the Torah scroll, there's usually a separation between Parshas, but here it isn't. At the end of the last Parsha, Yosef, who the brothers did not know was Yosef, was falsely accusing Benjamin of stealing his cup, which was also a method of divination, which he was again testing his brothers to see if they had truly changed from the time they sold him into slavery. At the beginning of this week's Parsha, Yehuda makes a passionate speech towards Yosef about how unfair it is, and that if Benjamin does not come back up to his father, it could push his father Yaakov into a premature death and grief. The brothers are about to get in, as explained in Midrashim, are about to get into a confrontation with Yosef, and Yosef then clears the room of everybody, and then admits to his brothers that he is their brother Yosef. In fact, they're all in a state of shock from embarrassment, so embarrassed they can't testify, can't talk, can't do anything. They then, Yosef then shows that he cares about them. He first hugs his brother Benjamin, who hugs him, and they cry on each other's necks, which really is talking about the fact not only that they're happy to see each other on the basic level, but they both have a prophecy at that point and foresee. Yosef is crying because the first two temples that are built in Jerusalem in Benjamin's territory, share the territory in Eretz Israel, are going to be destroyed. And Benjamin's crying because he said the home of the sanctuary was going to be attacked in Shiloh. When Yosef shows affection to each of his brothers, only then are they sufficiently over their embarrassment to be able to talk to him. He then says that they should bring down the children of Israel. In other words, all of his brothers, father's brothers, and all their possessions. Pharaoh is very happy to see them, see that Yosef, in fact, loses his family, because up to now there's been discomfort among both Pharaoh and the Egyptians that a Hebrew slave was basically running the country on Pharaoh's behalf, and they were happy to see that he came from such royal lineage and such a significant Kasher family. It's important family as that of Yaakov, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the rejoicing on that level. Also, Pharaoh at that time did have gratitude. However, we see that at this point, even though they are happy, Pharaoh's unhappy in one sense, it's the true beginning of the period of the Egyptian exile. Even though we say it started from the period of Yitzchak's birth, this is when the actual exile, which is going to lead ultimately to slavery, begins. Even though nobody is enslaved of Bnei Israel until Yosef and all of his brothers and the entire generation die, as we'll see in Sefer Shemos. However, they are servants. They're not going to be allowed back out of Egypt by the Egyptians, a point that will be well illustrated, and I'll speak about more in next week's Parsha, after Yaakov dies and wants to be buried in Eretz Israel. There's a whole interchange with Pharaoh about that. And they're only able to go to bury Yaakov, and they can't stay in Eretz Canaan, which is going to become Eretz Yisrael. They must go back. Yosef then sends wagon with supplies, and they gently break the news to Yosef that to Yaakov that Yosef is alive, so the shock of happiness won't be too much for him, like it was with Sarah Mina when she heard that Yitzhak had been not actually been sacrificed at the Akedah. The Parsha then goes on to describe that they're going to go down to Egypt, and on Yaakov's descent with his children and grandchildren, it is very, very interesting that he does not, in fact, he is not, in fact, going to be afraid, because Hashem appears to him in the vision at night, prophecy, that he will, in effect, that Hashem will be with them, that he will go down with them and then raise them up as a great nation. So he shouldn't be afraid of what's going to happen to his descendants. Yehuda, they then go down. Yehuda is sent ahead. And now on the surface level, why was Yehuda sent ahead? It says in the verse that Pasuk 28 of chapter 46, Ve'et Yehuda Shalach Lefanav El Yosef Lerav Lefanav Goshen Ashnab and Biu Otza Goshen. He went sent to Yehuda ahead of him to prepare ahead of him in Goshen, and they arrived in the region of Goshen. The reason there, and they weren't supposed to be in the rest of Eretz Israel, because the people were, in fact, needed a place to learn. He was going to establish a yeshiva, a place where the Jewish men learn throughout the ages, and he was making sure that would all be properly set up before everybody else came. Now, what's interesting, the word that is used there, is that Yosef it's a Yehuda Shalach. The Rav Shimshon Mastropoli does a whole Devar Torah on this and says that the word Shalach is a remiss to something in our future oral history, that just like Yehuda prepared there for us, it can also be translated that he went ahead to Shiloh. What is it's connected to Shiloh because at the time of the coming of Mashiach, Yehuda will, in effect, going to Shiloh, and that's an indication of Mashiach. Then David, who was a descendant of Yehuda, and because if you take the word from Yehuda, because it's Torah, Sheikh is from Yehuda, and since he's creating a Talmud, house of Talmud Torah, it's also telling that he will then be bringing the Torah back to Israel and bring the ultimate redemption. Because when he was going to show he was supposed to prepare the Torah, it then the Parsha then goes with a discussion of Yosef going to land, getting the land of the Egyptians, because at the beginning, when the famine started, the Egyptians bought the grain via Yosef, all the money, and went into the coffers of Pharaoh. From there, after they went into the coffers of Pharaoh, what happened next was they, after a year ran out money, they then traded in their livestock for another year's worth of grain. When that ran out, they said, all we have left is our land, and we become Pharaoh's slaves. The slavery part was rejected by Yosef, but he did acquire all the land of Egypt, except that of the priestly class, which Pharaoh provided them grain directly, went to Pharaoh. And from there, we'll see what he is preparing. And then after they give their land, and they have to become, in effect, serfs, servitude, tenant farmers actually be a better thing. They are provided grain by Pharaoh, seed grain, but in exchange, they have to provide 1/5 of their crop each year. Yosef moves all the population around from one end of Egypt to the other. However, in doing so, he is not doing it in a haphazard way. The people moved as a community. However, since they weren't in their ancestral lands anymore, they were in effect aliens from what they had, and therefore that prevented them from accusing the family of Yaakov of being aliens. On another level, this gave virtually was giving great power to Pharaoh, which by the time of the story of the Exodus, at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, he will be exercising absolute power. He will no longer have to rely on advisors. I'll be speaking more about the relationship between Pharaoh and his advisors in next week's Parashat Vayigash. And it also says that that they acquired and it says in the last verse, the Yeshev Israel, Eretz Mitzrayim, Eretz Goshen, the Chuzaba, Pharaoh, Period of the Arabian Melod. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, the land of Goshen. They acquired property in it, and they were fruitful, multiplied greatly, because remember, they were going to have to go from 70 individuals to, in the space of a couple of 100 years, to 600,000 men, and with the women and children, about 3.5 million people. And it says that they acquired land. Now, they were originally only supposed to be in Goshen, but they started getting into more and more real estate elsewhere in Egypt, which showed that they weren't temporary settlers, but they were settling in, which was not the intention, and which was the great poems from later on. And in addition, another meaning of Kuzo is not that they acquired, but the land grasped them, took hold of them, which meant they were going to be attached to and enslaved by the land of Egypt until it was time to be liberated in the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. In the whole story of Shmos, Exodus, the second book of the Torah, which we'll be we'll be getting to in a couple of weeks. One aspect I would like to deal with here a bit more in depth, it's, if you look, there's a census taken of all the people that came down with Yaakov, and if you total it all up, you get to the number 66 people were descending. 3 people were already there, Yosef and his 2 sons, which only adds up to 69. So who is the 70th? One explanation is Yocheved was born in the walls as they were going between Eretz, Canaan, and Egypt. Mitzrayim, that's one explanation. She in fact became the 70th. Another is that Yaakov is also counted. A third explanation, very interesting one, is that the Shekhinah went with the people. Now the Shekhinah is a divine presence that Hashem allows people to sense. And today it's only place it's present a bit that can be felt is by the Kotel, the Western Wall in Jerusalem, at the Temple Mount. And any event, the Shekhinah went down. Now there's a big question on this. First of all, Egypt was the most impure part of the world. So why would the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, inhabit that? Special presence. In fact, it says a number of times that Moshe had to go out of Mitzrayim, had to go out of the city before he could get prophecy with Hashem. Now, the greatest level of, so if that's the case, how could the Shekhinah be there? There's a number of explanations. One of them is that it says he went down and was going to be suffering with them. In other words, feel their sorrow, their suffering, which means he was supportive of them and was going to support them, but that the Shekhinah, his divine presence, wasn't there. A second explanation that's given is that there's different levels of Shekhinah, of revelation of Hashem's presence. The most dramatic one and the strongest one was giving the Torah at Sinai. It was also a big presence when the Egyptians were drowned in the Red Sea. After the sea split, allowing Bnei Israel to cross over the Nile, the Red Sea, actually, excuse me. The third, another explanation is that the presence in Egypt was at a much lower level, just like when we say when 10 people study Torah, as the Shekhinah dwells among them, then it goes to 5 people, 4 people, 2 people, and then 1. The Shekhinah is there at each one of those times, but even though it was there all of those times, it's in different levels. A final explanation is that it's not that the Shekhinah is at a different level, it's how we perceive it. Shekhinah is the same everywhere. God is not affected by spiritual impurity. And what we're talking about is that we're given, depending on our environment, either feeling a greater presence of Hashem's, the Shekhinah, or a lesser presence. But we should know that the Shekhinah is with us at all times, even if we can't perceive him, whatever country we're living in, even under the most difficult circumstances. And that therefore, we should always be a share Hashem, where Hashem is always with us, always at the most difficult and darkest times, as well as in positive times. And as we have now left the light of Hanukkah, we should carry that light with us, but also realize that Hashem Shekhinah is always with us. And everyone should have a good Shabbos and a Shabbat Shalom.